Today in San Cabrillo Zoo, we are getting started on our beautiful Australian area, and we're introducing one of my favorite animals from the Oceania pack, the Tasmanian devil. San Cabrillo Zoo is a sandbox zoo very much inspired by the San Diego Zoo and Safari Park, and thank you guys so much for stopping by to check it out. Without further ado, let's get started. Well, my friends, today is the release day for the Oceania Animal Pack. Not Animal Pack, we didn't get that many animals. But I'm super excited that you guys are finally able to play with all the toys I'm playing with in here. It's a really, really fun pack, especially when you need something to really help spice up your gameplay. It's a really, really solid pack for that. So, we should probably talk about what we're doing in this section, what we're doing in this speed build, and what the hell we're even doing in Planet Zoo. Don't mind me, I'm just going to adjust my microphone a little bit more, get the gain up there. So essentially what we're working on in here is our both San Diego Zoo and San Diego Safari Park inspired Australian area. So this is really going to be a mix in between those two facilities, I guess. So we're combining elements both from the zoo as well as the safari park. In case you guys don't know, I just got back from the San Diego Zoo. It was beautiful. It was great. I was able to meet Remnant. It was so fun. And yeah, it was just really freaking awesome. I felt super inspired. So I was like, listen, next park we got to do is going to be our California Zoo. So that's exactly what we're working on over here. And I'm getting started on these elevated pathways. So that is something that I was super inspired by from the safari park. And it's definitely something I really want to incorporate in this section over here. So you can see I'm using a whole bunch of these new wood pieces that we got, but predominantly I'm also using mud pillars down there. Now, many people might be saying, what's the point of putting them down there? They don't even look that good. My purpose of using those mud pillars down there is a very specific purpose. It allows me to build on the grid and get precise measurements for wherever I want my fences to be. So if I really have this long section of path, I could actually double click on that, select everything in there, and then duplicate it so that it falls directly in line with the rest of the grid. I think that works extremely well. Let me know if you guys want like a little bit more of a tutorial on that. I'm more than happy to send one out for you. But that's really it. That's really my biggest tip that I could give for building a lot more specific, a lot more precise builds of this nature. Regardless, you could see me getting to work on these sort of sloped areas. What you'll see in this cinematic is very much a proto version of the finished product of this section. I'm so excited, not for this speed build, but for the next one. It's going to be so fun. But still stay around for this one because we do a lot of awesome stuff, use a lot of cool building techniques for you guys to learn. Really awesome. But for the main part, I am pretty much lining up all these fences as a way to kind of guide ourselves through these elevated pathways. I laid out all the pathways beforehand, and I did a ton of screen building before we even started working on this area. But yeah, I essentially did a bus depot. I did a Japanese gardens loosely based off of the zoos, but also loosely based off of the Japanese Friendship Gardens at Balboa Park. It was a super awesome facility. If you guys are ever in San Diego, please, please, please go check that place out. Get the San Diego Go Pass. It saves you so much money, and you can do a million different things. It's so awesome, so helpful. The city is perfect for just doing whatever you want. It's great. But what I'm doing over here is getting started on these little elevated buildings. So these will essentially serve as small little snack shacks. They'll also serve as little gift shops as well for, you know, anyone who wants to stop by, get like a koala plushie, stuff like that. And I'm also getting started on this little, I guess you could kind of call it a pond. I'm going to call it a billabong. A billabong is actually what's known as an oxbow lake. So it's kind of what happens when a river over time kind of deteriorates and it's left going like the path of least resistance, right? So a billabong forms when that path of least resistance chooses an entirely new flow of the river. So what was once part of the river now doesn't flow anymore. It's where you find stuff like platypus. It's where you find stuff like a lot of stagnant water fish and insects. It's really, really cool. I really suggest you guys to look a lot more into that stuff if you're more curious about, like, you know, specific Australian biomes and landmarks and stuff. Really cool stuff. But that's kind of what we work on down there. I realize I don't even get to work on it just yet. Instead, I am working on these interiors. Oh my gosh, this thatch set. This is going to be so useful for literally anything that you guys make. Whether it's going to be an African habitat, whether it's going to be like a Congo one, I could definitely see this being so useful for. I just got back from Bronx yesterday, so I'm like ripe, filling to the brim with inspiration. So I'm thinking of, like, you know, Southeast Asian builds are going to be good for that. And of course, Oceanian, Australian, all these kinds of builds are going to be so useful. Well, this piece is going to be so useful for all that stuff. I'm doing custom windows, by the way. It's something I don't really do too often, but it's something that pays off so well. Now, if you guys have ever seen the San Diego Safari Park, you'll know that their Australian section is very much like that classic Australian theme we have in Planet Zoo right now. It's very corrugated metal. Very big emphasis on that stuff. I'm not really doing that too much in this one. I like the idea of it, but for some reason, I really like the idea of, like, these smoother wood exteriors for now. I'm gonna go through and kind of dirty it up later, but for the time being, I really couldn't feasibly decorate these buildings to the best of my abilities. I wanted to make sure that you guys were catching up on San Cabrillo Zoo because I've been doing a million different things in here. I've been dying to show you guys. So unfortunately, I'm probably gonna work on this actual building's exterior when I finish everything else in this section, and then we can have, like, the grand tour and stuff like that. But that's really it. So I'm copying a whole bunch of different aspects from the rest of my zoo. This is something I really recommend. Do not build from scratch, okay? When I say that, obviously, if you guys want to make, like, custom fences, do that. It's great. It's so rewarding. However, once you do that, you could use that throughout your entire zoo. You could do what I just did and make some small edits to it. Say, for example, I use the gutter formats that I have throughout my rest of my zoo. I just changed the color on them. I just changed, like, the orientation of, like, their hanging bits. And that's really it. It's super easy just to be able to come up with a concept for your zoo, come up with, like, some industrial designs, and then copy that all throughout the rest of your zoo. It's so easy. It helps your zoo have a much more concise look to it, and it's just great. It's great. What can I say? So we're actually getting started on the habitat now. Welcome. All right. So I threw my Tassies down there. They are so cute, but they are so tiny. I never realized how tiny they were. So I have them kind of running about here as I build, just so I could get a better sense of scale, so I know how to manipulate the habitat parameters to the best of my abilities, making sure that all the sections where the Tasmanian devil shouldn't be accessing is accounted for. Specifically those interior parts, like the undercarriage of these walkways. I wanted to make sure that they weren't able to get in here. So that is where these lovely new rope pieces come in. Very much like the mesh pieces, we have a lot of really awesome versatile uses for these. I love, like, the decoration ones too. That's kind of like, you know, the fishing rods, not fishing rods, but fishing nets kind of just hanging down. We incorporate a few of those in a bit. But what my main thing is for this habitat is the rock work. Now, this is super, super important. I also was really feeling this technique where I build up where I want the habitat parameters to be. And then from there, I outline it all with the rock cladding. So I kind of have this follow this nice organic shape, this nice organic curvature, all throughout the entire habitat. And from there, I use even more rock cladding pieces as a way to help it really feel like it's a steep cliff, which is another concept we use in zoo design. It's essentially what's known as kind of like a moated area, so that way the Tasmanian devils would not be able to climb out of their habitat. I would also imply that there's like hot wire in here, but in Planet Zoo, you can't really get thin hot wire to look that good. So for my purposes, I just say it's there, and I don't actually put it in there. It's totally fine. This is a video game. It's not like the Tasmanian devils are going to pop out of their habitat and start to eat you through your computer screen. That would be quite dangerous. But working our way in here, I kind of, try and flesh out those rock barriers with a bit more chunky rocks. So I like to use this long one. Looks kind of like a poopy right there. But I use a whole bunch of those all throughout here just to help frame that kind of like curvature a lot more. And I think it looks pretty good in the end. It looks really, really solid. And I continue this all the way back here to their backstage holding. I am no Zoof, I am no Zoov, I am no leader. I don't do the backstage holdings all too much. It's something I would really love to do. I just don't have the knowledge or the know-how to make it. It's just not me. Maybe we could convince someone of those guys to pop into San Cabrillo and help us out with that. I think that'd be kind of funky to do. But what I do like to do are funky habitats. So what I'm doing over here is making this, I guess you could call it kind of like construction tubing. So I have this back here, and I'm really, really, really a big fan of it. Came out super well. It came out exactly how I wanted it to work. I just wanted it to be this kind of cheap way of creating a tunnel where the Tasmanian devils can pass under the overpass. I thought that was just a really cool effect from the actual San Diego Zoo, and I wanted to incorporate it in San Cabrillo Zoo. What I'm doing over here as well is another motif from the San Diego Zoo. This is very much like, I don't know, I really like the safari park habitat style, but the motifs from the zoo, if that makes sense. The Tasmanian devils are found in the zoo's Australian area. The platypus, the wallabies and kangaroos are found in the safari park's Australian section. Very confusing, I know, but it's just what I wanted to do, so I kind of like it. So what I'm doing over here is a motif from the zoo. It's just a small indoor viewing where you could actually view the Tasmanian devils as they sleep. I don't really think they're nocturnal. I don't think they're nocturnal, but they were sleeping whenever I was at the San Diego Zoo, except that one time where they were kind of just running around. It was so adorable. Also my first time seeing Tasmanian devils there. Really, really fun. But that's kind of what I want to incorporate over here. I give them staff access so that staff could come in here and clean up that little interior, maybe refresh the hay once in a while if they need it. And that's really it. So from there, I have all the bases I need to start to really help flesh out the rest of the habitat. Also, I wanted to make sure that they could actually access that part in there. That's super important too. Really would be so disappointed if they couldn't actually access that. So I wanted to make sure it was functional at least. Doing this cladding technique as well around the back. Really, really happy with how well this part came out. I really wanted it to feel like you're in the middle of the mountains, because San Diego, California in general, is just very mountainous. There's never really just long stretches of plains over there. What I really want to emphasize is the fact that it's so hilly. It has like all these edges everywhere, ledges, hills, mountains. I really wanted to make it feel like that. So I'm trying to incorporate a little bit more of that into the natural environment of the Tasmanian devils viewing area. So I have a few mountains back here, just dressing them up with a few more cladding pieces. Also fixing that little section back there. I thought that was really something that we had to do. Make sure that they're not able to escape. And this section right here too. But I really want to help it feel like it's nice mountainous back there. We'll see a little bit more work on that in a little bit. But I have ADHD, guys. I can't stay in one place for too long. So I just kind of do whatever I feel like. So that's probably why, like, you know, the timestamps are just either very vague or very specific. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for those just yet. But you can see I was in a foliage mood. Needed some green in here. So I get started on our foliage palette. The Australian section is going to fall in line with pretty much a little bit more of the rest of the zoo, kind of like the general areas. However, I really want to emphasize the new plants that we got. So we have a whole bunch of new Oceania plants from the Oceania pack. So these silver ferns are so good. They are so beautiful. They have a really awesome texture. They make for really, really good both not only ground cover, but medium to large height cover as well. I think it's super awesome. Can't forget these lovely bird's nest ferns as well. Just a really awesome way to create this bracken look without using the actual bracken in-game. Very much a big fan of this now. It just has this beautiful light green color to it that I really enjoy incorporating in here. I still use the normal bracken anyways, because what I really love about the Tasmanian devil habitat in the San Diego Zoo is that it's a lot more lush than you're led to believe. It just has all these beautiful forested covered areas for the Tasmanian devils to run around in, and it looks great because of that. It's a really nice naturalistic looking habitat, and I wanted to emphasize just the feeling I got from that in this habitat that I'm making over here as well. I got a little bored of foliage work, so I'm moving on to a little bit more rock work. So I'm using a mix of the natural rocks, the stalagmites, because they have this really, really awesome organic texture about them. And I'm also using the faux rock to create these nice hillside pebbles. Very much trying to emphasize just some nice cliff faces, and I also change out the colors on these progressively as we get away from the center over here and as we get closer to the center. I feel like having those gradients in your parks really, really help to make your habitat stand out and feel alive. I think it's such a really, really awesome technique to do over there. Also trying to figure out what other plants I use throughout this habitat. So I kind of just bop over there. You'll see me kind of switch in between, like, you know, the general, like, unused park areas where I have a whole bunch of miscellaneous foliage versus other habitats where I'm like, oh, what did I use for kind of like general trotted weedy areas? So I'm using the Triordia grass, just the tip, to really help emphasize, oh, this is not really an area that would get a lot of water. I'm also using these beautiful trees. I forget their name. I'm gonna put it right on here. Bing, right there. But they make these beautiful, beautiful trees on the workshop. They have an incredible workshop. And they are working on sort of like New Zealand Oceanian Zoo, I believe, right now. Really awesome stuff. Very cool. I use a lot of blueprints in my builds. I'll just let you guys know that. Not too many in San Cabrillo just yet. I've only just been using them a little bit here and there. Just not really anything too crazy, but that one I could not pass up on. It was too beautiful. I typically always emphasize the fact that you should use blueprints in your zoos. I think there is no reason why you shouldn't be, because you're just wasting your own time if you build the same thing that someone else built. I even admit that to myself. Someone else can build, you know, feeders a lot better than I can. So I use leaders feeders. I know, try saying that 5 times fast. But using blueprints is just a really efficient way of building your parks. And that's how so many people get beautiful looking parks. They use beautiful looking blueprints. No shame in that. I kind of want to do a funky video on that soon. Stay tuned for that. But here's what I'm talking about with that exterior of the habitat, just helping this feel like it's nestled in these beautiful Californian hills, using a whole various mix of different ferns, palms. I'm using those curisote bushes, and I'm also incorporating a few more of those really kind of big pebbles back there inside of the hillscape. So this one, I think I emphasize it like the grayer ones are towards the back. Meanwhile, a lot more of the more colorful ones, getting a lot more into your brownish colors, are towards the bottom of the habitat. I think the contrast of the gray and the browns work so much better at a distance. And it just has this really, really cool depth of field effect. I really like it. Now, what I also do in here is use as many of these stalactites as I can. I really, really do enjoy using these because, as I was saying earlier, it has this beautiful naturalistic effect to it. And it has a really, really awesome mix right in between this natural kind of looking texture and a lot more of, like, you know, your planted areas. So what I'm doing in here is custom railings. Now this one was a little bit of a mess. You could see I put down these bright red pillars down there. Now that's going to be a guide for me on where I want the bottom of the railing to be. So I lined it up right next to a guest to make sure that it would be at the perfect height that I wanted it to be. And then I make sure that that little red bit is hidden as much as I can throughout this entire incline, because I'm working with a lot more organic looking terrain. It takes a lot more work to be able to make these like custom fences, these custom walkways look just right. And it's really worth it in the end to make sure it looks right, because it results in a much more beautiful looking product. So it's just it pays off to be a lot more precise with your planting like that. I don't know, I kind of like it. So what I'm also doing throughout here, I'm bringing back those pea shrubs because I haven't used them in a bit, and I feel like they really work well in a very Oceania themed area. I think those bright yellows work super well and kind of remind me of a plant that you would see in a section like this. I'm using those pig face plants, really stupid name, I know. But I'm using a whole bunch of those in there just to help bring out a little bit more color and bring out a lot more kind of low-lying foliage, especially in an area like this where every single view of the habitat itself is important. What I really recommend doing is having your foliage on the exterior of the habitat not really blocking the view of the guests. Really try and emphasize that you guys are allowed to look in here. You know, we're not going to obstruct your view with any large bushes or trees or anything like that. Even though I think I do add a few trees in here. What I really like though were those really tall rock structures using the temperate rocks in there. I thought that was kind of cool. What I also add is kind of like a mini sign in here after I add these cabbage trees. The cabbage trees, oof, oh my god, so beautiful. Really awesome piece. I'm using those already so much throughout here. But I make this little lava rock stand, and I make it look like it was kind of carved out of stone. So I put the Tasmanian devil Maori sculpture right in there, colored it black. I think it works really well in there. I think it's super cute. What I'm also doing is the rest of the foliage around this habitat, just making sure that we're framing it right. I'm so disappointed that, like, I don't know, you guys aren't seeing what this is going to look like next, because I'm so proud of the next habitat. You guys are not ready of that. But what I'm working on over here is the custom flooring. What I always love and emphasize in my zoos are custom floors, whether it just be a little bit more of kind of like a, how do I say it, like curbing. Whether it's curbing or whether it's like the actual floor tiles themselves, it's something I recommend doing in every single one of your zoos. I am not kidding when I say that this elevates your parks so much. It shows that you care about where the people are walking. You care so much to the point where you're making these beautiful custom floors, and it just elevates your build so much more. It really helps break the mold. If you guys are hoping to do a lot more realistic zoos, or even trying to make a more fantasy zoo, definitely try and dip your toe into custom flooring, because it really helps to pay off. It looks gorgeous, my friends. Now, as we're working in here, I had some issues with the pathing. Really was giving me quite a run for my money, but I get it to work nonetheless. You could see me doing a whole lot of work in here, just trying to remove these extra bits and bobs, just making sure that actual pathway looks good. What I also like to do is this little billabong section that I was talking about earlier that I don't build until now. So this is just a natural water source, very much mimicking the one that is in the San Diego Safari Park. It's just nothing crazy. They have a whole bunch of like waterfowl in there. I don't know. I think it's super cute, and it's something I really want to emphasize in there. So it's just really cool. I don't know. So it's just a nice natural water source, and I've been using a whole bunch of those vista points as well in my parks. So I've been using a whole bunch of those to help guide guests around. I think that they are so slept on nowadays, because you build your zoos for your guests, obviously, right? You build them for your guests, you build them for your animals. Your animals can use your habitats just fine. They can walk wherever they want, but the problem with the guests in Planet Zoo is that they can't walk wherever they want. So you really have to guide them to where you want them to look, and those vista points help out so much when it comes to that. Now, this is probably my favorite part of this entire plaza. I did this custom border around here with these like Oceanian carvings or whatever. They remind me so much of the art styles that they incorporate both at the San Diego Zoo and the San Diego Safari Park in their Oceanian sections, whether it's the Australia section, California, I believe they call it in the zoo, or whether it is the, I want to say, Walkabout Australia at the Safari Park. They really use a whole bunch of these like Aboriginal colors, these Aboriginal textures. All that stuff is just so awesome, and I really want to incorporate as much as that as possible. So I decorate this entire plaza using these beautiful colors, these beautiful patterns. So awesome. And then I help to center it all with a whole bunch of different planted areas. So one of my favorite things to do is flip those flower beds upside down. They have this really, really super good mulch texture. So I try and emphasize that as much as possible. It's a lot more dry than the actual mulch pieces we have in game. I think it has a much better effect, and it's just so freaking good because of that. I don't know, I like it. So getting to work on the rest of the billabong over here, you guys saw I did kind of like, you know, that cladding technique, but still it didn't feel organic enough, so I had to bring out a lot more depth in here. So you can see I'm incorporating a lot more rock on the inside of this water. No animals in here. By the way, I did remove all of the mods from this park. Not only did I remove the new species and stuff like that, I also removed the remasters. So the next animal you'll see, it's kind of just the vanilla animal, but still I think the habitat speaks leagues for itself. Also, I kind of been missing Frontier tweeting me. Oh my gosh, I miss that stuff. But regardless, you can see I'm working on this section back here, really trying to emphasize, oh man, this is nice, it's beautiful, it's lush, it's organic. Really wanted to make sure that we hit home on all of those talking points. So you can see I'm adding a lot more creosote bushes in there because they have this beautiful effect where it feels like go away green, but for plants. So I'm really trying to make sure that we emphasize that, because obviously there's not really going to be anything under those walkways up there. So I really wanted to make sure that, you know, we don't have anything under there that would take away the view from the greater picture as it stands, kind of like, you know, the rest of the features of this plaza. I don't know. I'm not really good with voiceovers that go for over half an hour, so we're doing great right now. I'm also decorating that staff pathway right there, just making sure that this all in the cinematics will sing, and I am certain that it will. One of my favorite sections over here. Oh boy, let's get started. When you walk into the Australian section of the San Diego Zoo, they have these beautiful outback totem poles, essentially. Forgive me, I don't know the proper name for them. Obviously, they're a lot more indigenous inspired, at least, of like the Aboriginal peoples. But you could see that there's so many different colors, there's so many different shapes, and there's something I felt about these when I saw them that I was like, okay, these have to go in San Cabrillo. Like, there's just no question about it. So I'm using the tiki pieces that we just got as a way to kind of create these nice new shapes that we've never really been able to make before. So what I did, obviously the tikis would be in poor taste. What I did instead is face the tikis to each other and slightly push them apart. So that way we don't see any of like those funny tiki faces. Rather, we're just left with the backside of them, which has this really, really cool texture on here. So I do a whole bunch of colors in here, very much, again, inspired off the ones I saw in the San Diego Zoo. Not really in terms of the patterns or stuff like that, but rather in terms of the colors. So I'm doing my best to try and incorporate like all the colors I see on each individual pole. I think it turns out pretty good. The only thing that I have to say about the San Diego Zoo's ones is that they have these little animal carvings on the top, and while I thought that I could sneak in those statues, like those theme statues that we got on top of these, they really just didn't blend well, which is a little bit of a shame. But regardless, I think that the colors really do speak for themselves, and they really get across the point I wanted to make for something like this, which is really emphasizing height and bringing a whole new kind of like cultural inspiration into this section. I think it works super awesome, and it's just so freaking beautiful, my friends. Oh my gosh. So you can see I'm using a whole bunch of different pieces in here as well. I'm using some of those Indonesian pieces that we got with the tropical pack. It feels like we just got the tropical pack, right guys? I don't know, time is going by way too quick. I'm also decorating the interior of the Billabong little thing with a whole bunch of like, you know, the decals and stuff like that, just help dirty it up a little bit more. And I figured we would get a little bit more plant growth in here, just help green it up a bit. So I'm using a whole bunch of hydrilla grasses. I'm using some water lilies to give it a little bit more of an effect on there. And I'm also trying to figure out what else I want to incorporate. I rediscovered those water tupelo trees. They came with the wetlands update, and I keep on rediscovering them. And it's like, oh my gosh, I gotta keep using these. So I'll be doing a lot more of that stuff relatively soon. But you can see I'm also utilizing these beautiful stalagtite pieces throughout here. And I'm also mixing the colors because I really wanted to get some color combinations in here. Just really help to emphasize, I don't know, it's not just all one color in here. I wanted it to feel a lot more natural. And because of that, I wanted to break up the monotony of that kind of sandy brown that we get with the desert rocks. Also, I finally got to finishing the other half of the habitat. Usually whenever I build, I split it up into sections. Again, my ADHD just terrorizes me for that. So I try and split it up. So essentially I did the other side of the habitat, and now I'm like, okay, this should go by even quicker because I don't need to spend all this time figuring out what plants I need. I don't need to spend my time figuring out how do I arrange them all. Instead, it just flows so much better. It flows so much quicker. And this habitat section just really took me so quickly because of that all. So you can see I have it be more like a mountainous hillside. And because of that, I really want to section off half of the habitat just for foliage. This habitat might look huge to you guys, but really usable space is only about 1/4 or 1/3 of the habitat, because obviously in game and in real life the Tasmanian devils really wouldn't go over all this foliage. They would really only go where you see dirt, because that's what's known as kind of like pace trails. Pace trails aren't typically bad. Pace trails just determine where an animal walks the most. If you're walking in like the Congo or something, you might notice that there's always going to be trails. That's going to be from gorillas, that's going to be from, like, you know, elephant herds, all that kind of stuff. So it occurs in nature too, so it's just really cool to see. Regardless, that's pretty much it for the habitat. Just doing these final touches on here to make sure that the rest of the habitat view looks good for you guys, because the cinematics, that's what it really comes down to. Those are the money shots, my friends. So adding a whole bunch of other plants in here, a whole bunch of other rocks, and it really helps to sell the fact that this is going to be one of the more natural areas of the zoo. Really trying to emphasize nature and a little bit more industrialness, really living in harmony, if that makes sense, through, like, you know, the rest of like the viewing buildings and stuff like that. No interiors on those just yet. I'll probably save that for myself. Kind of like in between our last habitat and the tour, just so that, you know, I could take my time and make sure it looks good. Kind of like the Japanese gardens that you'll be seeing. Kind of like the rest of the main street that you guys will be seeing. But here we finally are in the cinematics, my friends. I want to thank you all. Like, I want to thank you all even for stopping by. But as of late, the channel has been absolutely popping off with numbers. So many new friends have gathered. So many of my latest videos have been doing so good, thanks to you all for just trusting me that I have some good videos for you guys. And it really means so much because, I don't know, I'm getting a little soft with this one because I've been doing this for at least 2 years now. I never thought I would be doing this for as long. I thought it would just be kind of like one of those COVID hobbies, like a sourdough bread starter. But here I am. 2 years down the line, I have to give you guys a shout out. I have to give Frontier a huge shout out, especially Cat May, for providing me the code and early access to this DLC. Once again, it really means a lot. It means a lot that I could enjoy my hobby, enjoy it with you guys, even like reap a little bit of financial benefit out of it too. I mean, who could knock that? But the fact that I'm able to do these speed builds for you guys, the fact that I'm able to go to zoos for you guys and do those live tours, Bronx Zoo tours coming soon. Yeah, that's really just one of the best things I could ask for. We just passed 17,000 subscribers. It's really not a crazy goal, but 17 kind of like is my lucky number, so it just really, really hammered down the fact that, I don't know, I'm just super lucky to, I don't know, be here with you guys. Enjoy the rest of the cinematics, because I have a ton of them. This is going to go for a bit. Really long video. Oh my god, I just noticed it's almost 45 minutes. Yeah, that's really it, you guys. If you guys enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe, because it really does help me a lot. And I'll see you all in the next episode of San Cabrillo Zoo, where we'll be building for the lovely quokka and some koalas. There you go. I just spoiled it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Really do appreciate it. See you guys then, and goodbye.